especially the services industry, we've benefited by playing the cost card. We've said services are cheap in a country like India. And we've played that cost card for decades. But the fact of the matter is, if you look at
most of this AI project depends heavily on the quality of data that you actually work with. The second aspect I consider foundation is about conceptual foundations underlying generative AI, right? So that's where the aspects like model training, for example, you should know, you should pretty be comfortable with what this model is trained at. Is it actually trained for classification? Is it trained for regression? Or is it actually trained to predict the next words or whatever, what it does, right? So what the model is good at. Is a model which is trained to do well for summarizing things, or is it actually trained good to code generation or whatever? So what this model is good at, what is the core competency of this particular model is something that you should know. And you should understand this from the very foundational aspect, right? Also, you should know why or what aspects this model is actually not pretty good at, right? Before you actually use a model, you should actually have this kind of understanding, right? How will this model perform when you actually see data which is out of distribution, OOD, or how sensitive the model that you actually use are to the prompts that you actually give, quality of prompts that you actually give, right? And you should, particularly when we talk about generative AIs, you should actually be understanding what is this hallucination about, right? When do you expect this hallucination happen? So this is pretty important aspect. Also, the foundational aspect include, or foundational skills include, how do I take an AI model and be ensure that I increase the trust when I actually use it within my organization? How do I work to ground my model, or how do I actually perform fine tuning or decide when to use human review and things like that. So the second aspect that I consider foundational is an aspect that actually covers all of that. Foundations of generative AI, right? The third aspect that I consider as foundational is neither math nor any engineering. It's about way of working. When you actually work with AI, it entails a particular way of working with AI, right? So as Professor Gaurav mentioned, it's important that you actually frame your problem pretty well, right? You always go with a good framing of the problem, and you always define what success means when you actually use a model. Success metrics, these are pretty important. And once you have a good framing of the problem, you should have a sense of data. What is it I have? What data I have? Is it pretty strong data or not strong? It all depends on how well you understood your data. So get the sense of your data, and then what assumptions do we make that constitute the choice of model, the model sense, right? And what are those challenges involved? And then I use my model and then get my results and be able to validate the cycle, right? Be able to frame your problem, have a data sense, have sense of the kind of model that you actually use, their strengths, weaknesses, and then AI gives you result, and then how do I assess the quality of the result? What should I do further? That mindset, way of working, is something that I consider pretty foundational. The fourth foundation that I want to talk about, I'll be closing quickly. The fourth foundation I'll talk about is about aspects of fair and responsible use of AI. As to I consider this as foundational, pretty foundational, right? Very simple. Don't share your you use at many point in time you would actually be using general purpose AI platforms, AI models, for your work. So it's important that you don't share your confidential data over any of these platforms for any purposes. You should be pretty careful with your data, right? Watch out for the bias there in the data that you've actually used, right? So these are certain aspects that I actually want you to consider, and this is my fair and responsible use of AI constitute my fourth foundation. So quickly, the first foundation that I've talked about
Data.
1 minute.
Yeah, you said data. I'm going to summarize for you. Data.
Cool.
So you said data is one of the key foundational principles. You said an generative AI foundational knowledge is extremely important.
Right.
You talked about a mindset change and way of working.
Yes.
And you talked about fair and responsible
Right.
AI. And those are, in your opinion, the four key foundational
Four key
topics
foundations.
everybody should be focused on.
Right.
I think that's a very interesting thought, and that's leading me into. You actually led me when you talked about mindset. I was pretty inclined to stop you then and there because it's leading me into my next question, which is actually about mindset change. And Professor Neha, I want to come to you and ask you: when you see professionals who started adopting AI, you can even take your own example if that makes more sense. Do you see a mindset change coming in these professionals?
Yes, Professor Nishit, absolutely. So, especially talking about AI application in healthcare, I have seen a change from blind trust on AI models to responsibly interpreting what the model results mean to us, right? We just don't take whatever the model gives us. We just don't accept their results as it is, right? So the shift is from a deterministic learning approach to a probabilistic learning approach, to actually thinking on how AI is not going to just take away my job as a doctor, but it is going to help me to make better decisions.
Professor Prakruti, same question for you. Have you observed this kind of a mindset change coming in the professionals?
Absolutely. So initially, most of the AI applications were developed by vendors, and the professionals wanted to stay away from it. But as we started, interacting with a lot of these organizations, and we did some basics of AI literacy or intro to AI kind of sessions, we explained to them how, again, human in the loop is very important. The subject matter expertise is extremely important. So till that, you won't believe it. It's either like a vendor will come develop a solution, and either it works, it doesn't work, it works sometimes. But they said it's 98% accurate. Then we explained to them that your defects are so minimal. So all the good data points are being captured. Your model might be statistically very impressive, but it's operationally useless because it's not capturing the defects.
That's an interesting point of view to look at, right? Professor Venkat, I want to come back to you. We've heard our panel experts talk about capabilities and mindset change happening. I want to touch upon a topic which is very close to you and which is something you are pretty expert as, in my opinion. And the question I have for you is, what is, in your opinion, a meaningful way for working professionals to learn? So as I said, there's always been focus on capability building, and now we are seeing a mindset change happening. But what is it that provides a more meaningful method of learning is where I'm coming to you with my question.
Quickly, the yesteryears, you know that the ANSYS and Linux and things like that were predominantly development started in the universities. Whereas in the case of AI, though OpenAI, we can say that in a way it started in the university, but the developments are predominantly happening in the industry. So the learning should happen in the industry. Does that mean that the educational institutions should just focus only on some general engineering and then send them to the industry to learn? No. They have to collaborate with the industry. And such a collaboration and the learning has to be very formal and structured. Because like Professor Sundar mentioned and like you mentioned, Nishit, that it's not about the tools that we are teaching, but the fundamental principles behind the tool. That is what the students and the future engineers should be learning. So I would consider, it's not a marketing pitch, but I would consider the work integrated learning as a model of education seems to be a better fit for learning technologies which are rapidly transforming and the happening is in the industry. So when you say work integrated learning, it is defined by 3 terms. One is it's collaborative between the organization, industry, and the student. The second one is we integrate what we teach in the class with the authentic work experience. And the third thing is that it is structured. So it is integrated, collaborative, and structured, and that's how the WIL is defined. And I think that will be the most appropriate according to my understanding.
Thank you, Professor Venkat. I really appreciate the way you put across work integrated learning as a set of 3 key ideas or concepts. I mean, I've been using that word since start, but I think that that was a very well structured way of defining work integrated learning. So I'm just going to stand to just create a sense of urgency between our panelists, because what I'm going to do now is to have a rapid fire set of questions for our panel members. And don't think, that's the idea of a rapid fire. Don't think, whatever comes top to your mind, just blurt out the answer, right? So we'll just go around the table and maybe reverse backwards. My first question is, Professor Vimal, one AI tool that you use daily?
ChatGPT, certainly.
ChatGPT, Neha.
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT it is, okay. Professor Gaurav. TensorFlow, interesting. Professor Venkat.
Notebook LM.
Okay. Professor Prakriti. ChatGPT again, okay. So I'll start with you now this time. One AI myth which you want to break.
Yeah, so basically, don't go by accuracy, like
Yeah.
just what I said.
Yeah,
and
as I said, whatever comes to your mind.
okay, and instead, look at the confusion matrix.
Confusion matrix. Professor Venkat, you have,
Yeah, don't trust it blindly.
don't trust it
Blindly.
blindly. Don't trust it blindly. That's a good one, yeah. Professor Gaurav.
Don't apply it anywhere and everywhere. Where it makes business sense, apply it
So
there.
you're saying it's a myth that we can apply it everywhere, and that's the myth you want to break,
Aha, means apply where it makes
where
business
it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes. Professor Neha.
I think the myth I want to break is AI is not here to replace doctors.
AI is not going to replace doctors. That's coming from a true healthcare expert. Professor Vimal, just winding up. What one myth do you want to break about AI?
Okay, I'll break one. Tool mastery is not AI mastery.
Tool?
Tool mastery is AI mastery indeed, but the myth is, getting mastered at tool. You assume that you become good at AI.
Okay, so
It's
you
not
don't
true.
become a master in AI if you
Yeah,
just master
true.
a tool. That's
True,
a good one.
True.
One mistake that people make when they learn AI. You can talk from your experience as well. One mistake that people make when they learn AI. Topmost on your mind.
So I started assuming that, with respect to the prompt that you give, right? AI will fix your prompt and get things done for you, but that's not true.
It's not. It's not always accurate.
it's not true.
Professor Neha.
I think one mistake I would like to highlight is deploying AI solutions without validating in your population. That means testing on one hospital and thinking it's the solution generalized for everyone to use is not right. It's a
Supervision and human validation is extremely important. Professor Gaurav.
Yeah. So I feel that using relevant ontology is very important.
Okay.
Because many a times we see that the AI solution shows some kind of hallucination. So if you use well-defined ontologies in that domain, or maybe you have other ways of maybe having human in the loop, something like that.
Right. So
that
use
can help.
proper ontologies and look
Yeah.
out for hallucinations.
Yes, yes.
Professor Venkat, your thoughts?
I think AI is what
Human?
humanizing AI.
Humanizes
is what-
AI. Yes. Okay. Professor Prakriti.
Yeah, looking at AI as a one-time deployment is a mistake people make. It should be looked at as similar to an equipment or a process. It's a product, a lifestyle,
It's an
life
evol-
cycle management.
It's an
is what-
evolving
yeah,
thing,
exactly.
and it cannot be seen as a one-time
Yeah.
deployment model. Excellent thoughts, I think. With that, I would like to come to the close of our panel discussion. Really want to thank our panel members for taking out time today and joining us. I really also want to thank our audience who stayed with us. I hope there are some good points that you'll take from our session today. And I'm sure there are a lot of discussion points. Unfortunately, we're short of time. Feel free to visit us at our booth. We are in hall number 6. We'll take the discussion forward maybe at hall number 6 because we have to vacate the conference hall. So we'll meet you at hall number 6, booth number 6.9. That's where we are. You know where to find us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.